a little young guy when I started. He was like Master Lin.
Right.
And now he still looks like he still got black hair with a little stripe with gray.
Yeah, he has age.
I look like Al Sharpton, and he still looks the same.
Fu Chronicles, Sifu Quasi, and yep, I am back.
I'm thinking I'm back.
First of all, Gung Hai Fat Choi, happy Chinese New Year to each and every one of you. Hope you're all ready for this new year. Year of the Tiger. Tame it, do it, make it yours. Okay, 5 crucial questions, another episode coming right at you. But before we do, make sure you tap in down below with your likes, comments, all that stuff. Let us know you're enjoying the content we're creating. This way we can obviously do more of it. And then of course, share with your friends, family, maybe enemies, doesn't matter. This is of course how we grow, and it helps me out a lot. And a big shout out to all of you as we're making our way to 4,000 subscribers. How the heck is that happening?
So what? I don't know.
You guys are the best community ever. I'm just truly humbled. Let's go, let's grow. You know is my motto. And this round, we've got Grandmaster Dennis Brown, who teaches his art of Tien Shan Pai out in Washington, D.C. Yeah, D.C.'s heavy on the check-in these days, right? Okay, now, Master Dennis Brown. Notably, his art got passed down from his own Sifu Willy Lin, who is widely known in the Kung Fu martial arts community. And do stick around to the end of the video. We've got a very special self-defense portion that comes directly from Grandmaster Brown's school out in DC, so you can check a few moves out and see for yourself how this beautiful but deadly art really works. And if you haven't already, do subscribe down below, because that's how you guys will stay up to date on everything we've got up and coming on the channel. And goes without saying, you won't miss out on important videos like this one, because listen, Black Belt Magazine didn't name Master Brown one of the 25 most influential martial artists of the 20th century for nothing, right? Just saying. So let's find out more. Today I have a very special guest. Not only is he a Hall of Famer, National Grand Champion, a school owner, actor, legendary owner of the Capitol Classic Tourmanment out there in DC, Master Dennis Brown. How are you, sir?
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, sir. I'm doing well. Thank you for taking the time out. So you're out there in Washington, D.C., I know. Are you originally a D.C. guy?
I'm born, actually I was going to say born and raised, but I've lived here all my life. Been doing Kung Fu here. My whole Kung Fu career is here, martial arts career, I should say.
And even before we talk about Kung Fu, I know that I read that you were a Howard grad, is that right?
Yeah, I went to Howard. I went there in the 60s at a whole different time, and everybody was marching and carrying on, and it was a good time.
Go Bisons. I know you have a long career, but how'd you start off in the martial arts? What got you first interested in it?
Well, you know, actually, I started in about 65. I was in at Howard and on the Air Force drill team. You know, they had the cadets there, and we had a guy named Hook that also was a martial artist. I was living at Drew Hall, and I lived in DC. I lived on campus, and I heard they had a class over at the gym with a guy teaching judo. Believe it or not, it wasn't martial art, it wasn't Kung Fu, it was judo. And I went to one class. I went over there and had them doing drills where they would run at him as fast as they could, and he would flip them in the air, and they'd land and slap out. Nice. And the first day I was there, some guy got flipped and cracked his leg. I went back to the dorm and went, okay, that's not for me. I'm gonna have to figure out how to get something else. So I didn't actually take my first class there, but across the street there was believe it or not, a junior high school across the street from Howard, and I found out there was a little group of what I call now vagabond warriors, guys, group of little street guys that were doing this stuff down in the basement. They would let them use a little room, gotcha. And I went over there and they were doing this stuff called Kung Fu. And I went in and watched class for about a few minutes, and then I've always been a little crazy. They said at the end of the class, anybody who wants to come out and try to get the championship belt can come out. So this guy Jimmy Yee had the belt for like 6 weeks or something. And end of every workout class you could go. they didn't know I wasn't a member. I raised my hand and went out there and got my behind whipped terribly. And so I realized there's something else going on here. So I joined up with those guys. It wasn't really a school. They basically worked out. We worked out in Malcolm X Park in front of drummers and all like that during the evenings and on the weekends. And they just called it Sui Jiao, you know, Chinese martial arts. And that's where I first started working out. So from 65 until about 68, I was just driving back and forth to New York from DC, 4.5 hours on Saturday, because I was the only one that had a car. I had a little raggedy Volkswagen. We'd pile all 5 guys in the Volkswagen. We'd go to Chinatown and watch Kung Fu movies, Shaw Brothers movies, all day. Yeah, down there in the Bowery and that area. And they had double features. So we'd buy a bunch of food and go to one movie, the Sun Sing, and watch 2 films. And then we'd get some more food, run to another the canal. And we'd watch like 8 or 9 Kung Fu movies, then drive home. And that was our Kung Fu class for the weekend. We practiced what we saw in the Jackie Chan movies and Shaw Brothers movies. And somewhere around 1968, that's when I joined a formal school, believe it or not. And it wasn't a Kung Fu school. It was Rhee had opened his first Taekwondo school. I was there, one of his first students early on. But at the end of every class, they would have you come up again. There was something they did. Everybody could come up and try to spar with the top people. And I got out there and raised my hand just like I did when Jimmy Yu wore me out. And I'll try it. I'll try to get my first belt.
Right.
It's my second day. And I jumped in there and went into one of these Jackie Chan moves or something I had seen in the theaters.
In the movies, right.
In the movies, and I'm going through all these Kung Fu moves and all this crazy stuff. And they were telling me, no, don't do that in here. This is a karate school, Taekwondo school. I stayed with them about a year, and that's when I met my instructor in 1970. And that's when I actually started my formal training with Grandmaster Lin Shi Quan. We call him Willy Lin now.
Willy Lin, Master Willy Lin, yes sir.
Master Willy Lin, he's Lin Shi Quan. And he wanted to name himself, he wanted an American name, but he wanted me to give him the name Willy. And I said, well, Mr. Lin, at that time, you know, we were marching and stuff. You don't want to be called Willy, you know. He wanted to, so I told him, can I call you Wiley? And he said, no, my name is Willy. And that's the name I'm gonna get. I've done the numerology, and that's a lucky name. But anyway, I became his first disciple, and I've been running his schools since 1971. So it's been, I don't know, 50 years. I've never ever not run that school. He left and did other things and all like that, and we changed the name from Willy Lin School to Shaolin Wushu because people kept coming in and going, well, where is he?
I am looking for the master.
Ain't no masters here, dude. Ain't no slaves either.
It's me now. I'm running it.
Oh, that's really awesome. Just so you know, my Qigong Master Shum is really good friends with your teacher, Willy Lin. So
yeah,
I've met him a few times. He would come and visit the school when I used to train there. So I'm originally from New York. So when I would train at the head, you know, Master Lin would stop in sometimes and just say hello. Yeah. I think he still does. So that's an awesome connection.
Yeah, well, you know, he still lives in New York.
Yep, yes, sir.
He's leaving to go. He's leaving New York for good.
Oh, okay.
He's got a place in Seattle, Washington, and he called to tell me I'm leaving for good to move to the West Coast, and I'm going to be living in my place out there. The problem is, we both I was a little young guy when I started, and he was like Master Lin, right? And now he still looks like he still got black hair with a little stripe with gray.
Yeah, he has age.
I look like Al Sharpton, and he still looks the same. he still looks the same.
You're right, because when you look at old pictures, it's like, because him, like I said, him and my Qigong are really good friends. You look at old pictures, and now it's like that time has not touched the man. So that's
absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, because you were noted as one of the first African Americans to actually train out in China. So when you did that, like the early 80s, right? What was that experience like?
That was an interesting time. That was I guess 82. No, I think it may be between 83 and 85. I've been so many times now I got it wrapped in my head. But I started my tournament in 82, so I think it may have been 83 or 84. But we got Roger Tong, Eric Chen and Roger Tong, and those guys were all competing on the open circuit, not the Kung Fu open circuit. And I used to see these guys all the time because we were out there competing against them. And Peter Morales, all those guys, he was from Syracuse.
Yes, sir.
And they all decided that they were going to go to, but they were studying this new stuff for me, Wushu, because I was doing traditional Kung Fu, Mr. Lin's Tien Shan Pai. And they were all going over there to study Wushu because they had been studying with Roger Tong and Anthony Chan and those guys. And they asked me if I would go along. Well, it's 5 of us. We got a chance to go over in 83. And we were the first Americans to actually go in. We flew into Beijing, but when we got there, believe it or not, we couldn't get out, go to the gym where we were going to train because they were having a national tournament down in a place called Omsk. It was their national championship for all China. Okay. And so my first time there, they flew us down to Omsk, and we got to sit in the stands with thousands of people to watch their national championship, the top Kung Fu and Wushu people in China. We were the only Americans in the crowd, and we got a chance to sit there and watch these guys. And you know what that Wushu stuff looked like. They're flying and flipping, and they're just getting off. And I'm sitting there looking at them and going, what is this? Because, you know, we were more traditional system, but we were blessed because we got a chance that for a week long that it ran, we got a chance to get up every morning and go in and see the top competitors, the top artists in all of mainland China. And after that was over, we got on the train and we went to Nanjing, which is where we were going to study for the 3 weeks. And they got a chance to ask us, well, what do you guys want to study? And everybody who was Wushu, I want to study this, I want to study that. And we got a chance to study, I guess I learned 8 or 9 weapons. Who knew we'd ever get back to China? So I was just being a greedy kid. I want to learn the broadsword, the straight sword. I want to pick up, I saw that guy doing the whip staff, and his staff was so amazing. I want to learn rope dart. And here's the other crazy thing that I think back on my career now and think, how lucky were we? We were the first Americans there, so they wanted to impress us also. So what they did is they literally said, whatever weapon or form you want to do that you saw at the competition, they brought in the winner of that competition to teach us their form. That's awesome. Everybody talks about, well, I remember Dennis from rope dart. He used to come back and do that rope dart form and all like that. Yep. And I told him, I said, actually, the guy who won the rope dart competition in all of China, they brought him there to teach me the form.
Rope dart, that's awesome. Yeah. And
broadsword and all that. So we had a wonderful time. I mean, we never left but this was in communist China then. I mean, everybody was still wearing the green hat with the green jacket, the green pants. Right. Or blue and blue, or gray and gray, but that's all you saw. Right. So we were lucky to be there at an extraordinary time. The instructors were trying to impress us because, again, for them, they thought this may be the first time we get a chance to see the best of America. Right. Well, we weren't the best of America. We were the best they had at the time in Wushu. So, you know, we got a chance to work out with them for 3 months, to train with them and develop some relationships that allowed me to go back. I mean, I've taken maybe 10 groups over to China since then. We also ended up being the first ones to go in. A few years later, we were the first ones with Eric Chen to go into Chen, the Chen family village that started Tai Chi. Oh, and we went in, and it wasn't what it is now. It's like a university now with dorms and people come from all over the world. It was a little town with a little dirt floor thing that we got a chance to sit back and watch the Chen style and meet the top Chen family. And we stayed with them for about 3 weeks. We got a chance to go into the Shaolin Temple, and I remember it was so small then. It wasn't like it is now. You go there now, they got special dorms for foreigners. It's very contemporary.
I was gonna say, I went there 3 years ago, and from what I hear, it's so much more commercialized now. It's like it's crazy over there now.
They got electricity in all the buildings. I mean, for God's sake, they told me, well, you know, Master Brown, they tore down all the old buildings. Those are all new buildings. They built the same way. They look the same, except way in the back, all the way in that one building, all the way in the back where they have the murals on the wall. Yes. And did you see what I saw back then? There was no light in anything. They always kept it closed because the paintings were so old, they felt the light would destroy them. But they opened it up just for us to go in for just a while. And the first thing I saw was probably what you saw. A lot of those Shaolin monks look like me and you.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
that's the dirty little secret.
Yes, sir.
All those guys came from the place they call the unknown. You know, they know Buddha Dharma came over from India, but he had studied at the unknown, and I kept telling them, I know what the unknown continent was. It was Africa.
Yes, sir.
A lot of the monks on that wall. I said, these aren't monks that we're talking about today or this last 100 years. These are murals of the original monks, and they look like me. Yes. So I remember walking around with my head up thinking, I wonder who knows this. But you've been over there, so you know, you've seen that wall.
I went 3 years ago for my first time, and it's kind of the same thing. I'd spent 4 days at the temple, and then 3 days before they had us at one of the schools out there for a while to train as well. And what would you say with your experience? What would you say, and you've been around the world so many places, the difference between training out in these other countries versus in the U.S.?
We have a lot of opportunities they don't have. I mean, the gyms aren't as elaborate as ours. They're not, you know, professional as ours. And that whole thing, I'm just trying to think, every place I went to, schools are much smaller. We have access to a lot more information than they generally have, because when I went to Israel, and I've been to Russia, all up in the Alps, up into the, you know, Siberia, took the Siberian, I mean, all over Europe and every place. In my opinion, because even in China, the top players, the top coaches, if they leave China, they all want to come to America. We do real well here in America. I mean, I think the schools in New York and Seattle, Washington, D.C., Boston, any place there was LA, any place there was a big Chinatown is where most of the, when I was coming up, where most of the really sharp martial artists and Chinese martial artists came in. And it was because it was there. Here it was, of course, out Chinatown. It was Ding Chen and those guys, Raymond Wong, and you know, that whole crew. I knew all those guys, Hui Lee, and that was how far back we went. I mean, I think Ding Chen was actually running Jiao Ga when the first time I met him, and we'd go down there and learn some Jiao Ga forms, and then we go up into what's now called Malcolm X Park, Meridian Park, and we'd practice all week on that. Never joined the school, but I came up with all of those guys, and but it was a small little nucleus of us studying back then. It wasn't as popular as it is now. Yeah. In fact, I talked to Master Ron Wheeler a few weeks back, and we were talking about obviously his teacher Dean Chen, as you mentioned, doing the Jiao Ga thing. So I know you guys are connected as well. So when you first started teaching at your school and everything, was that always I mean, I know you took it over from your Sifu, but was that always your thinking you wanted to teach professionally, or was that? No, you know, I'm in Washington, D.C., and forget Howard, if you got a government job, that was a big thing. My mother was so proud because I ended up getting a good government job.
They got government jobs. What?
I was GS 11, like 18 years old or something, 17, 18 years old, and my career was just flying. You can imagine when I walked in and told my mom, because I was living by myself then, but I told her, you know, I don't think I'm gonna continue with this. I'm gonna quit my job, but what are you gonna do? I'm gonna teach Kung Fu. What? I'm gonna be teaching Kung Fu. Like I said, I was at Jhoon school, but I always had been a Kung Fu guy since '68, and I didn't join his school since '65, but I didn't join his school till like 1968. And I still they didn't like me in there because I'd be out there sparring with Kung Fu, and they wanted to teach Taekwondo. Since 1971, I've been blessed to not do anything but Kung Fu. I come to the school every day, and the school has gotten bigger and bigger. I've changed buildings and grew and all like that. But I tell people this pandemic almost killed me because I was closed down. They closed my school down for 1.5 years. And I told my wife, I have never not been doing Kung Fu because they not only closed down the school, but you couldn't leave the house. Right. Luckily, I was in the backyard every day doing my training and all like that. But I tell people, I said, I thought about it. This is the first time I've gone more than a day without being in the Kung. And so I'm still here teaching this thing. Of course, we had a lot of experiences going back and forth to China. It's been a blast. You know, I went over and did the movie in Hong Kong. Same thing with Wu Ben. I don't know.
Yes.
Have you been to the? You know who Wu Ben is?
Yeah. Jet Li's coach, right? Yeah.
Well, my first instructor when I went to Beijing was Wu Ben.
Oh
he
wow!
Ran the Beijing Wushu Institute in Beijing is Wu Ben, and I've taken 3 or 4 trips over and taken people to train with them. When Jet Li did his first movie, Shaolin.
Yes. At
the Shaolin Temple, the hotel. I was staying at a hotel with my team on the 4th floor, and we'd hear all this little noise going on. When we got up that morning, all these folks we heard working out in the hallway, keeping us awake, they were out in the parking lot running technique.
Gotcha.
And they had this one guy that was above everybody else. He was just amazing. I mean, he's flying through there. I was there with him when he did his first movie, Shaolin. I was in the same hotel with Jet Li.
Nice.
And so we didn't watch all the shooting because we was only there a couple of days. They shot for a month or so. But I tell people, I was actually there when he was doing the Shaolin, when he's running up the steps and all like that. Yeah, what I ended up doing is I ended up working out at Beijing with Wu Ben. Jet Li, Li Liang Jie is his name, right?
Yes,
Li Liang Jie Li. So I took at least 3 trips over with my team to work out with Wu Ben because I had met him at that time. And so I ended up bringing my instructor, Wu Ben, here for the Capitol Classic some years ago. I want to say about 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I brought the whole Beijing team here to perform at the Capitol Classics.
Yes,
I actually brought the #1 team in China, and people screamed, they loved it, but they didn't know that it was the Beijing team.
Right.
So I brought Wu Ben up, and I hooked him up with Mr. Lin and said, this is my actual first instructor. And I have to give that respect to him, even though, you know, I trained with you, and in China, you're my guy. Yes. But I brought Mr. Lin up on the stage and introduced him. This is my instructor. Everybody clapped. And then Wu Ben came up, and I said, this is another one of my instructors here from China. His name is Wu Ben. And everybody gave a little golf clap, you know, a little, oh, that's nice, that's nice. And he looked at me, because they had screamed about Mr. Lin. Mr. Lin is Dennis Brown's instructor. And he got a little golf clap. And I said, well, wait a minute. Mr. Lin looked at me like, that wasn't nice. I mean, it makes it look like he's nobody.
Right.
And then I said, okay, I know you guys are looking at, and you gave him a little golf clap, but I'm going to say something in a minute. And then all of y'all are going to go crazy.
Right.
He's not just my instructor. I buried the lead. This is Wu Ben. This is Jet Li's instructor. His only, and the place went crazy.
Yeah.
The started screaming, and he looked up at me and said, "Cafe," you know, in Chinese. What'd you tell him? Why'd they do that? I said, I told him that you were Li Liang Jie's only instructor.
Yes, it's coach.
And they were just still screaming. And what he did, he looked at me and went, "Oh." As if to say all the stuff I've done in my life,
and that's the one.
All they know about me is he was Jet Li's instructor.
Yeah,
and he stayed, and he and Mr. Lin became best friends. I mean,
that's awesome.
They went to dinner and all like that. So that was my whole movie thing. They kept asking me to come back and do movies and stuff like that in Hong Kong and different places. But you know, I would have had to do what Cynthia Rothrock did. They wanted me to move my family to Hong Kong, and then you know, they could make those movies in a short period of time and start pressing out those movies. But I had, you know, I've always wanted to do what I'm doing now, and I said I still got a school back in Washington D.C. I'm not calling my students and say, guess what? I'm moving my family here and all like that. I wasn't that crazy. And I tell my wife now, I said some of the stuff that we've done has been unimaginable. I mean, because at the end of the day, I'm still just this little guy from Rome Street in Northeast DC. You know, I'm still this little kid that went to school here in DC and lucked out with Master Lin, and I was just the first one to walk into school. Right. It's just that I never left.
Well, it's true what they say. When you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right? So
you're absolutely right.
I love what you said. I've heard you in other interviews talk about you mainly now. It's not so much even teaching the arts. You teach like more character development. And I've always, I love that.
I'm in the character development. You know, that's what we do, man. If they end up being better people, you know, the stuff that they learn from us, learn patience, learn the stick-to-itiveness, learn how to follow directions, and learn to keep a calm mind and know when to go hard and when to go yin and yang. They understand that there's times in your career that you need to know when to go hard, and other times you need to learn how to yield and listen.
Exactly.
And then hit, and you know we do in Kung Fu, and then redirect it and come back and hit them from another.
Exactly. That's one thing. Even when I was back on the East Coast, I never got to go to a Capitol Classic. I always wanted to go. Went to the Wong tournament, just never made it over to the Classic.
Oh, you got to see the Capitol Classics. We must have 2,000 competitors from all over the world. And here's the interesting part: when they started that, Ronaldo Barton, Karate Illustrated, started that circuit.
Yes.
And I was and they started 12 guys. They picked the 12 people to start NASCA. And of the 12 that started it back in '82, only 4 of the original 12 guys who started that circuit are still around.
Oh, wow.
I was one of the guys that started it. I was the only Kung Fu guy in the room and the only black promoter in the room when they started NASCA.
Wow.
50 years later, I'm still the only promoter in North American sports karate circuit who is a Kung Fu guy, and I am still the only black promoter of that international tournament. So it was all you know, it's one of the biggest tournaments you're ever going to see. I mean, we have sometimes, you're talking about Raymond. Raymond has 6 rings. Yeah. We have 40-some rings at the Capitol Classic.
I know you do. I know it's a bigger scale, but
all the black belts in 20 rings over here. Then you got all the underbelts in 20 rings here. And probably about 10 years ago, I just decided, you know, I made them start adding more Kung Fu and more Wushu to the thing. I said, because I know all these divisions you guys have. I mean, thousands of divisions of fighting and forms and weapons. And then I said, but guys, I'm still a Chinese stylist. That's what I am. And they said, since you came in, we have a lot more Chinese stylists actually come to our tournaments in New York and here to the big NASCA tournaments in Florida. Right. Because a lot of the guys, they come because they can't say, well, it's just karate. Right. Because you're in here. I said, but it's still, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing what I love. I'm helping you guys grow. But you know, guys, I'm still at the heart a Chinese stylist. Right. So I'm going to ask you guys, let me do something different than all 11 of you. You all have this, it's a circuit, so you all have the same division, same rings, same ranks, everything's exactly the same, just in different cities. I'm going to change my tournament now from the U.S. Capitol Classic / China Open. And I'm going to start 15 rings in the same huge ballroom, the same huge, because we have like a 32,000 square feet, 36,000 square feet, and then another 36,000 square feet, just to give the tournament. I said, I'm going to take that section over there, and I'm going to put 20 rings of nothing but strictly Chinese divisions. Wow. There ain't 16 things you can do. I said, what you guys, y'all think Kung Fu is Kung Fu is Kung Fu. There's Northern style and Southern style. There's internal, there's external. There's Wushu. There's all kinds of, I can keep naming Wing Chun. Those are all different styles of Kung Fu. And you guys think they said, well, why don't you just add a couple of Kung Fu rings over here? I said, because I can't just put a Tai Chi guy competing against a Northern Shaolin guy is a totally different thing. There's Praying Mantis over here. Yes. You guys think, well, it's Kung Fu, right? So no, that guy's doing Shaolin. This guy's doing Praying Mantis. He's doing Wing Chun. I said, and I'm not going to try to convince you guys that Kung Fu is all the same. Every Kung Fu school is the same. We have more different styles than you guys will ever have. So I'm going to start within my China U.S. Capitol Classics, a China Open section just for Kung Fu. So Wushu, I said, even with Wushu, it's not just one Wushu. There's Northern, Southern, there's long weapons, short weapons. I said, that's a whole, and Tai Chi, there's Yang, there's Chen, there's Wu, there's Sun. There's a lot of different types of Tai Chi. I said, and I can't get you guys well, you can just put one ring over there for Tai Chi. I said, no. So I started the China Open, and still I'm the only one that does that. They bitch and moan a little bit at first, and how you gonna have a whole separate tournament? Say, guys, y'all keep forgetting. I sit in the meetings with you. I'm with you, but I'm not one of you.
I'm one of you.
As big as the U.S. Capitol Classics is, you guys can't do what I can do. I want to have another tournament right there in the same room, but over here, you guys are going to be over doing your karate stuff and doing all your stuff. You're going to look over there and you're going to see all these Wushu stylists, because I'm at separate divisions. You can't put the Wushu guys in with traditional Kung Fu.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
They don't, but isn't it all Chinese? I said, oh man, I've spent 40 years trying to educate you guys. I can't do it. You guys should just walk over there and look. And when I first started doing it, the NASCAR guys, they'd walk over and see all the Chinese stuff that was going on, and they'd be going, oh my God, what style is that? And what style is that? That's part of what you can go to 5 different cities and see 5 different schools, and it's not like Taekwondo, there's Taekwondo and that's Taekwondo. Right. You can go into 5 different cities, see 5 different schools, and they all got their own styles of praying mantis, of monkey, of just all kind of different styles. And I said, that's my goal, and to expand to the different, now we're trying to expand to the different all Tai Chi tournaments.
Right.
Because you can't put Yang in with Wu and with Sun and just say, well, it's all Tai Chi, just do your thing. And so that's what we're trying to do now with the U.S. Capitol Classic.
And I'm going to wrap it up a little bit, but I wanted to just get this quick information on, so that if people want to train with you now, how do they do that?
Well, they can just go online and look up Dennis Brown Kung Fu. It'll take you to Shaolin Wushu, Dennis Brown Shaolin Wushu Center. Okay. Come over here, Sito. I have these folks that have helped me build this whole thing. She's been out there teaching the whole time I've been talking to you, covering for me. I'm going to put her on the screen. Here's the Sito. This young lady joined my school like, how many years ago?
How old are you, ma'am?
30 years ago. Wow. And never left. I love She's been to China with me maybe, 4 or 5 times? I love it. She's rocking and rolling.
I love it. Dedicated. I love that. Well, before you go, do you mind? I have one little segment on my show. I do some quick fire questions. Just 5 of them. I call them the 5 crucial questions. So I'm going to ask you really fast. I'm going to blast them off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because all health is from the inside out. All health comes from the inside. First, the mind. If the mind gets sick, then the body gets sick, and then the physical gets sick. So you can lift and do all the stuff you want. You can jump and fly. But if you don't control the mind, body, and spirit, eventually it will all break down on you. So it's very, very, very important to study stuff like Tai Chi and internal arts. I don't care if you want to do, you can do yoga, but this is something you need to keep yourself strong inside. It's hard. You can get weak outside and fix it. But if you let your internal organs fall apart, all the muscles in the world won't save you. Because we don't set the rules. Okay. You put them in with boxers and say you have to box with boxing rules, they're gonna lose. Boxers get in with MMA, they're gonna lose. You will lose. You put me in with those guys and say you got to fight by MMA rules. Well, MMA has no rules. So okay, I can kick him in the groin as hard as I can. Oh no, you can't do that. Well, the guy's bigger than me. So what I'm going to do, I'm never going to kick above his waist. I'm going to be throwing arm broom sweeps at his knees. I'm going to try to drop to the ground and break his ankle. But you can't, of course you can't do that. Well, can I windmill block and take it to his eyes? No, you can't do it. I said, well then stop saying it has no rules. It has rules. If you ask me, can I get in with MMA and win against an MMA fighter? No, that's using his rules. Right. But I'm not going to use his rules. I'm going to use Kung Fu rules, which means anything that works, I'm going to do. I had no problem doing Kung Fu because blacks were good in Kung Fu in the 60s, 70s. We were always good. Yes, but it was always a problem with me being an instructor. Nobody wanted to accept. First of all, they didn't want to hear that you were a shifu in the 60s. You can't be a shifu. You know? A black man trying to teach Asian martial arts, it was rough. I mean, I had all the bad feelings. I had people come into my school when it was packed, and I was teaching post Mr. Lin.
And they would come in and go, we heard so much about this school. We'd like to come in and get some information. And I'd give them information. They said, is there any way we can meet your instructor? And I'd always say, well, I'm the instructor. Yeah, I know you're the instructor, but the head instructor. So no, I'm the head instructor. I know you're the head instructor for your instructor, but we want to meet your teacher, your instructor. I said, oh, you didn't ask if you wanted to meet my teacher. He's a different brand. That's Willy Lin. But I'm the head instructor. This is my school. So it was rough in the early days. Nobody wanted to study with some guy named Dennis Brown. They thought I was a reggae singer, you know?
Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
I won't come down on you, boo. That's right. There's another Dennis Brown, right? That's
reggae singer. But it wasn't always easier, but if it was easy, everybody would do it. I think because I started it locally. You know, I didn't start it as an international or national, international tournament. It was about just running a really good tournament in Washington, D.C. area. We always had tournaments. They were always small, but they were never like New York and all the big cities and stuff like that. Right. So I didn't plan to open a tournament. I just wanted to be rated on the circuit. I just wanted to help to get the Kung Fu styles recognized. And when I decided to give a tournament, it's at the National Harbor now. We bum rushed the whole National Harbor. 2 years ago, we filled up every hotel down there. But I started the tournament at Eastern High School, where I graduated from, with a little gym that held 500 people. I think it was 5 rings. And at that time, it was called, from the first tournament, I named it the U.S. Capitol Classics. Nice. And they said, you have this little teeny tournament, and it was called the U.S. Capitol Classics. I was the first one to actually get a sponsor, and it was sponsored by Schlitz Beer.
Bye-bye beer.
Yeah.
Hello, gold. The Schlitz from Liverpool.
Schlitz Beer, and then later Coors Beer. And they would say, how did you know that? Why would you name it? It was always Dennis Brown's tournament, Robert Everhart's tournament, Wong Wei Hurt's tournament, or Raymond. We all had tournaments. You are the U.S. Capitol Classics, and you're in a high school gym.
Right.
I said, yeah, but guys, remember by the third, I went to Dunbar because they had air conditioning.
Right.
And then I moved down to downtown D.C. to the convention center. I said, because I always thought like that.
Right.
I didn't just compete in D.C. I didn't have any money, but I was flying all over the country competing. It was just how I envisioned it. And I think if you can believe it, you can achieve it. Do it professionally. I don't mean you have to go and get a degree in business or anything like that. If you're going to do it, you have to throw yourself into it. I mean, you have to be totally committed to it. You have to be live or die. And if you're strong, you're not going to die. You're going to grow. Learn. Be open-minded. Learn as much as you can. Find somebody who does it at the level you want to do it. Don't be an amateur school. Well, I just have a little group of people that just want to take, well, then that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to be a professional martial artist and you want to teach thousands of people, you have to realize you have to totally commit. And I have folks come in and say, Master Brown, you know, you've been running a commercial school for so long. I said, oh man, I can name the people that I learned from. Find somebody who's doing it the way you want to do it, and be humble enough to sit down at their table and feed.
So there he is, Master Dennis Brown, a true icon in the game if you ask me. But what do you guys think? It's your opinions that matter. Let me know in the comment section below. And share if you would, por favor. Okay, now you've been waiting. On to a few self-defense techniques as promised.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Drop.
Yeah, sit down, grab the arm, drop. No, hold on here. Don't think about it, just do it. It's better if neither of us think about it. Don't try to go over your shoulder. Don't go over your shoulder, just bend straight over. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I messed up and didn't get my space, and he's choking me. Okay, I want to trap the hand, and I want to scoop my hip out. Okay, throw my leg over his head, and just hold the hands tight, and just keep rolling over. Okay, kick, Okay?
This is Master Dennis Brown, and thank you for watching Kung Fu Chronicles.